In that letter to the United Nations Secretary General on March 19, 2025, President Nicolás Maduro claimed that the territorial controversy over the Essequibo region was taken to the International Court of Justice (ICJ) without Venezuela's consent, in violation of the Geneva Agreement. However, Guyana has clarified that this interpretation is not only incorrect, but has already been dismissed by the ICJ in its ruling on December 18, 2020. The court ruled that the Geneva Agreement does in fact authorize judicial settlement of the controversy, specifically through the ICJ. The 1966 Geneva Agreement was signed by the United Kingdom and Venezuela in February 1966 and joined by Guyana upon its independence in May of that year. It outlined a process to address Venezuela's challenge to the 1899 arbitral award, which established the boundary between the two nations. The agreement allowed for 4 years of diplomatic negotiations, after which the parties were to agree on a peaceful settlement method under Article 33 of the UN Charter. If no agreement was reached, the decision would be left to the UN Secretary General. After 2 decades of unsuccessful diplomatic efforts, including prolonged good offices process, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on January 30, 2018, determined that judicial settlement was the next appropriate step. Both parties were informed of this decision, which was made in accordance with Article 4.2 of the Geneva Agreement. Guyana subsequently filed a case with the ICJ on March 29, 2018, asking the court to determine the validity of the 1899 arbitral award and the boundary it established. Venezuela objected, arguing that the ICJ lacked jurisdiction. However, after reviewing extensive written submissions and oral arguments, the court issued its judgment on jurisdiction in December 2020, stating that it had been quote-unquote validly seized of the case and confirming its authority to resolve the matter. The ICJ explicitly found that Guyana and Venezuela had quote-unquote mutually conferred upon the Secretary General of the United Nations the authority to choose the means of settlement, and that the Geneva Agreement does provide for a judicial resolution. This ruling under the UN Charter is binding on both countries. Despite this, the Maduro administration continues to ignore the ICJ's decision, falsely insisting that the Geneva Agreement only allows for diplomatic negotiations. Guyana maintains that this issue has already been definitively resolved by the world's highest court. Following the jurisdiction ruling, the ICJ has moved on to the merits of the case. Guyana submitted 2 written pleadings, while Venezuela's second submission is due in August 2025. Oral hearings are expected in early 2026, after which the court will issue a final binding judgment. Guyana is pledged to abide by the ruling regardless of the outcome. Tiana Cole reporting for the HGP 93 News.